Greetings, Professor Collins. I'd like to take this time to thank you for allowing me to interview you for my site for Brown Girls. I wanted to interview you because not only are you an amazing teacher, but you express to us, the students in class, the importance of knowing our history to better love ourselves. You are an author, a published author, poet, and a teacher at Morgan State University. What do you enjoy most about writing and reading and being a teacher?
First, I want to thank you for asking me to come here and to speak on behalf of your site. I consider it a compliment that one of my students feels so engaged in the classroom that they think that I have more to say outside of that classroom. I teach because I think about the value of what has been written down for us by our forefathers and foremothers, and how an interpretation of that then helps us to interpret ourselves. What was there more to the question?
What do you enjoy most about writing and reading?
As I said, just the interpretation, being able to interpretate the self to another level. I like writing as a way to free the self, to understand what is going on for me personally. That's why I write. That's why I developed my organization SOAR, so others will sin righteously, because I find that writing is a way to break down those barriers to self. Helps us see beyond what beyond what is presented to us. To follow up with why you asked me, why do I like to read? Why do I like to write? I also like to learn more about myself and more about the people who came before me, who informed my life and informed the life of my students and my community. Growing up, I was blessed with a mother and father who were actively engaged in learning more about their history, learning more about their culture, and they then in turn passed that on to me, made sure I read, even through comic books, about Crispus Attucks and comic books that talked about Toussaint L'Ouverture. I mean, I don't see that as prevalent today, but I think that learning about your history, learning about yourself, really begins in the home. That's not something that we can depend on the school system to teach our children. And more every class that I am blessed to teach at Morgan, I see just how diluted our history has become in the schools. Because to ask a group of Morgan students, who is Crispus Attucks, the first black man to die in the Revolutionary War, first person to die, to ask that question for no one know the answer tells me that there's a problem, that there's a gap in this education. Gap because too many of our children believe that our history here begins with our enslavement, and our history of people of African descent begins in Africa, frankly. It begins with the building of the first university in the world in Timbuktu. So these are the things that I try to enlighten my students about, so that they can then research more on their own, if you will, the history that has not been taught to them, and to fill in the missing pieces.
Why do you think it's important for young people in this day and age to know more about our ancestors?
Well, to know, one, if you know more about your ancestors, you'll know more about, it gives you even more reasons to love yourself. It also gives you more information on where we have been as a people and how much farther we need to go. And it helps us not to repeat those mistakes. If you knew the power that, the power and the strength of the people that you come from, you would know that you too hold that same power, that same strength, and you can do anything in this world that you want to do. Recently, I'm doing a lot of work on, I don't want to talk too much about this project I'm working on, but looking at African American women who have not, I don't think, have been as highlighted in the culture. what they have accomplished. Bessie Coleman is one of those women, the first African American, the first to get an international airline license, the first African American woman to pilot a plane, and she goes to France to learn how to do this. There's also um, Bessie Blount, who actually invents the feeding cup for paraplegics after World War II. America did not want to buy her patent, so, and this could have helped a lot of our veterans, so she then sold the patent to France. And she's a woman, she died not too long ago, and she wouldn't allow any of her inventions to be put into a museum because she wanted to make sure that her young folks coming up knew who she was and what she did, and so that she knew that they would know that they too could be inventors, that they could make a difference in the world. And she inspires me, and thinking about women like her and other women that we know little about. You know, I didn't know about her as a female, as an African American inventor. And she's actually one of the first black women to work in Scotland Yard. She built her own business as a forensic scientist. So I just think that that's powerful. I can't just point to one woman in history or one
Too many people look
African
at the
American
present
man.
day and now, celebrities and people to guide us when we have so many other role models from our history that we can learn from and model ourselves after. I found on your site you wrote an article, a great article, called "A Beautiful Change," and it was talking about how influential and how much of a role model Michelle Obama can be and is to young black girls. And I'm going to read an excerpt from that article. I'm talking about Michelle Obama. Her beauty does not hail from a Halle Berry clone, nor is she a Beyonce double. Her beauty represents the masses of beautiful black women who have been overlooked or pushed aside. Don't get it wrong, there's plenty of love for the sisters of a lighter hue, but the mass media already works overtime keeping them on a pedestal. What there has never been enough of is visibility and praise for the darker sisters who are just as beautiful and in some cases more beautiful. There has not been enough brown and dark-skinned little girls who are told early in life that they are beautiful and worthy so that they grow to believe it. As painful as this truth is, they are the little girls and women who never garner the same attention as their lighter-skinned counterparts.
It saddens me that it's still an issue. You know, I think to some extent you got to turn off the TV. You have to turn off the images that other people create to define your beauty. And we have to do exactly what you're doing. Highlight our beauty. Continue to highlight it. Continue to have and set examples of beauty in black. And to know that that's possible. We have Michelle Obama, right? And I think that that's what all of us rallied around, right? That the First Lady in the White House is not somebody who's light, bright, and almost white, but somebody who looks like most of us, right? And that shows us that the possibility of that image. One of the things when they first got into the White House, and I used to hear the young little boys in my classroom, young men in my classroom, I should say, they said they were looking for their Michelle, right? They no longer were looking for their Halle. They were looking for their Michelle. And I said, wow, that's powerful. So it shows you the power of images. And too long, our images have been co-opted. So when we're in positions of power, then we need to make sure that we have a variety of our hues on display as signs of beauty. We are now in a position where you have the Tyler Perrys, you have the Spike Lees, you have a lot of people who are in charge of our image. And so I say to them, I say to you, those creators, those manifestors, those holders of our image, that we have to make sure that it's balanced. And you have to critique them when there is an imbalance. You have a voice. Women of color have a voice. And you exert that voice in what you decide to buy, and what you decide to wear, and what you decide to listen to. If you stop listening to people talking about you as hoes or bitches, then perhaps they'll have to write in a different narrative to describe who you are. If you stop placating them or buying into the images that they put forth in the forefront as signs of beauty for you, then perhaps they're going to have to figure out how to give better representation of your beauty.
Thank you.
That's really hard. I have two favorite novels. Zora Neale Hurston's The Eyes of Watching God and Toni Morrison's Sula. Those are my two favorites. I don't have a favorite poem.
Oh, you don't?
I don't think I have a favorite poem. I came into poetry when my mother took me to hear Nikki Giovanni speak at 1974 Black Expo in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Well, I wanted to write, and Nikki Giovanni. I think I started writing a pattern after the whole protest poetry, the Black Power poetry, that was relevant during that time in the 70s when I was growing up as a young girl. Later, I was influenced by Sonia Sanchez, who was one of my mother's favorites, and of course that spilled over to me. And I love the way that she harkens back to her African heritage through sound. I love Langston Hughes. I loved and knew by heart Paul Laurence Dunbar's poem, We Wear the Mask That Grins and Lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This price we pay for human guile. So, I love Paul Laurence Dunbar. So I have a plethora of poets who I admire, who I read and try to emulate to some extent. Not emulate more so form, because what I have to say and what I'm critiquing is going to be totally different because of the time in which I'm living and the time in which they were writing or are still writing.
I want to thank you again, Professor Collins, for this great, wonderful interview and taking the time out with me.
Thank you for making my job worth it.
Letting the joy unfold. I'm living my life like it's golden. Living my life like it's golden. I'm living my life like it's golden. 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 Living my life like it's